Howdy, folks. Welcome to another edition of Office Hours. Was doing some video work and my camera was kind of flaking out on me a bit. So we're going to see if those problems are resolved or if I may just freeze in the middle of this. We'll see what happens. I thought I'd do something a little bit different for this one. Somebody had mentioned to me, like, hey, if it's not scheduled, is it really office hours or isn't it just an Ask Me Anything? And I will say, there's a point to be made there, I suppose. And I am actually down, like, whatever your questions are, it doesn't have to be like, help me fix my Postgres. It could be, help me fix my DBA career, or how do I do scalability, or what have you, right? Any of that kind of jazz that I've been into, what is a DevOps, or, what have you, all kinds of great questions. But in any case, I'm going to go off book here for this one. And instead of doing questions, I'll take a page out of the pgsql Friday crowds book and just talk about the Postgres 16 release, which came out on the 14th. So I guess that's not quite 2 weeks ago, but pretty close. Or maybe more than 2 weeks ago. I'm not good at dates. In any case, so I will give you my top five features of interest. Maybe I'll call them that instead of my top five favorite features. Just kind of perusing the release notes. I've got a Postgres terminal here in case we need it. Probably won't. But maybe we'll show you a couple things. In any case, let me jump to number 5 feature, and it's just down here a slight bit in the release notes. Hopefully you guys go read all these release notes. I know it's a lot, but it's worth going through them to see what little nuggets are in there. It's actually this one here, this allow control of shared buffer usage by vacuum and analyze. And I find there's kind of two areas with vacuum, and really with vacuum more so than analyze, but with both of these that I think need some work, and this was kind of one of them. The just some flexibility in how vacuum processes interact with shared buffers and how that process is put together. So this kind of introduces that, gives you a little more flexibility and control over that, different ways that the buffer usage interaction can occur, and you can now set it at the server level, but you can also override it on individual vacuums, and in vacuum DB you can pass a flag in. So we've got a little bit more control there. If you are doing a lot of heavy vacuuming, especially where you're doing workloads during active productive, if you're doing like a nightly vacuum, probably doesn't matter too much. If you have vacuums kicking off during the day when you've got other work going on, I can see it being more of an issue there. So I think my camera just blew up while I was taking a drink. Sweet. So in any case, so that's my number 5. I just like to see that work going on, and there's still things to be done with vacuum. The other one I'll mention is how maintenance workman works with vacuum. We really need to fix that. Had some ideas. I might talk to a few people about that while I'm in New York. That'd be the other area. But for now, this is a nice little improvement in there. The next one, I guess number 4 on my list, isn't actually any particular one thing. It is, if you kind of look through the notes, you'll notice there's a bunch of places where it talks about improvements for the logical replication system. And so I kind of am lumping all those together. I like to see that we're still progressing on logical replication. There's a bunch of interesting stuff you can do now with logical replication, such as setting up like the, active kind of writes across 2 nodes type system. And, I'm not like there yet on if I really wanted like a multi-master replication solution where I can write to multiple nodes and have that all work. I probably wouldn't go with the logical rep that's built in at the moment. Like, I think there's still a lot of rough edges for that. I would do, if I needed like multi-node writes, I'd probably look at Citus. If it was more of the like active or kind of a clustered thing, probably like PG Edge as a thing there. I might even just turn to like Picardo. I know it's kind of old school, and a lot of people are terrified of the thing. I've run in production before. It does a really nice job, for what it is and what it does. And that would be if I needed like if I wanted this sort of multi-node HA failover type system, that's what I look at. But I think what you can do now with the built-in logical stuff will be interesting for things like if I'm moving maybe I got to do like some kind of hardware move where I need to use logical replication to make that happen. And I want a better fallback than, no fallback. Um, this would kind of help with that. So I think there's some things in there. Again, I'm kind of grouping up a bunch of different things. Allowing logical replication subscribers to use parallel large transactions, apply those in parallel. Like that is kind of a key feature. I think that's going to be really useful anytime you can sort of speed those processes up on those other systems. That's definitely nice, even for the primary. Have run into problems with that. So uh, grab a beverage. So that's my number 4. And my number 3 is kind of a similar cop out, if you will, which is speaking of not the parallel for the transaction application, but all the parallelization improvements in general, I think are pretty nice. And, just another thing where I'm glad to see that. That's the kind of ones where like you just installed a new server, right? You do the major upgrade and you get performance benefits for free. Like I always love that kind of work. And there's a number of things in here that, with regard to parallelization and parallel queries, to be more specific, that are coming with Postgres 16. So I'm really happy about that. Um, I do think we still need more sort of tutorial documentation, war stories on tuning and that kind of stuff with parallelized queries. I've got a bunch of notes slowly compiling, hope to publish at some point on that topic. But until that time, if we can just continue to improve the system, get more performance out of it, it certainly makes a big difference, in queries that we're using now. So that was my number. That was my number 3. And again, camera super wonky. I'm gonna go back and like checkpoint timeout set on this camera or something, and just getting a little bit weird. So my number 2, this is interesting. I thought there would actually be a little more buzz on this in the pgsql Friday blog post, and I might have said this is going to be my number 1, uh, but it turned out, well, I'll give you the reason. So the feature itself is the new pgstat.io view that shows the IO statistics, and I can just fire that up here, pgstat.io view. No, what the heck is it called? pgstat. It's just pgstat.io. What am I doing? I don't remember. So this is it. You can see like we got all kinds of read times, write times, the number of blocks in there. At some point that'll become muscle memory. I'll just remember the name of these things. But it's going to get a lot of information. And I've actually talked with Melanie Plagman, who is kind of the lead person behind this, and talked with her about it. Because I think my hesitation is when I look at kind of the landscape of databases that you can run now, and I think about, if I'm most workloads that I'm going to do, if I put those in like Azure or RDS or what have you, I think you can run those in a cloud system and it's fine. Like you get enough information back from those systems. There's enough stuff that's available either through the add-ons that they provide or through Postgres itself that you can get at the SQL level to do a lot of performance troubleshooting and get performance working the way you want it to work. But there are still cases where, like, if it's performance sensitive, I would want to go back to the command line and actually be able to see what's really going on at the system level, right? And bypass Postgres and see what the system is doing. And I mean, it's like, would I like to have dtrace on every system and access to it? Like, sure, but I don't need that for every system. So the question that I have at this point is, how much does pgstat.io change the game for needing to get command line access to see what's going on at the system level? We're definitely exposing a lot more from a metrics perspective, and what I really like is we're doing it in an easy way, like it's at the SQL level. So you can trend it, you could even do alerts on it, what have you. It's easy to get that information to make use of it with existing tools. But the problem that I just kind of have to see it in production to know how I really feel about it is operating systems lie, and Postgres doesn't mind being lied to. So I'm not quite sure that I'm going to be able to believe the information that's going to be coming back, and probably part of that is also going to depend on the particular cloud provider that you are dealing with. So if you have that issue going on. Like, that might change the name of that game. Whereas if you're doing it on, let's say you had like an EC2 instance, or you're doing it on hardware, you can compare and contrast and learn like, okay, yeah, this is, my hardware says it's doing this. This is what Postgres says. I can figure out how to reason about that. So I'll want to see this in production more before, otherwise this might have been my number one. But I think it drops to number two kind of because of that reason. I really got to see it in production before I'll know for sure, like, oh yeah, this is going to move some other percentage of workloads, like, to be uh, up into the cloud, and I'm not going to care that I don't get the command line. So that's my number two. Uh, my number one, now it's a little bit silly, I got to admit. But it solves, it answers a question more so than it solves a problem. It answers a question, or a number of different types of questions that people deal with all the time. And like, this was not like the thing that bubbled up right away. It just, I thought about some of these other ones, and I thought, there's reasons why they don't fit. And that's what I know. Like, as soon as you get access to this, it's gonna fix some things. And so this one, it's kind of silly. It is the feature of recording statistics on the last sequential and index scans for tables and indexes. And I know that doesn't sound like much, but we get questions all the time, and the answers now, they're all bad. They're somewhere between bad and horrible. Of like, hey, how can I tell if this table is still being used? And some like, oh, you should put like an event trigger on your system and track, when a sequential scan is changed in the stat table or something. They just crazy ideas like that. And I'm normally a fan of crazy ideas, but I like them to also be good. Um, Other things. Well, look on the file system at like access time and modified time on the file system. That'll give you the answer. As if vacuum couldn't come along and like totally mess with those results. So this question can be harder to answer than you'd think. Similarly, like, I have my sort of treat method of index management, where one of the things is pruning out indexes you don't need. It's very hard to tell if you need an index or not, based on the current information that's in Postgres. Right? Like, you can kind of get it, but if you're like, how long ago was this index used? It's really difficult to tell. Postgres doesn't kind of give you that over time. You got to use something like pganalyze does a nice job of collecting the data of index scans and then graphing that out for you so you can see when it was last used. Like other times we would use something like system monitoring as a Perl script to kind of go look at the system table, and I might as well just pull this up. I could, the PG stat all tables. Look at this one here. And you have like your last vacuum, last auto vacuum, so you're familiar with those. But we want to look for last index scan, right? And last sequential scan is the other one up there. So these are going to be timestamps that come in. So, we've got those added in there. We got it in pgstat indexes as well for last index scan. So if you're trying to find, how long it's been, like, the problem now is like when I would do consulting work, often you'd say like, okay, these are the candidates, and now we've kind of got to watch them maybe for the next like 30 days, right? At least for a day, possibly for a week, but maybe 30 days or more, right? If you want to make sure there's no like monthly report that's getting run that needs that index, and that's why it was there. So it can be sometimes hard to tell which ones are unused without extra tooling. And so this, again, it's at the SQL level. It's easy to pull the data, throw it in any other tool. But now you can just kind of look at it as well. And that might give you, if the last one was like 3 months ago or whatever, then you're like, oh yeah, I can definitely drop this. And in fact, making a check, if you're doing like check Postgres or something, a check that would just say like, hey, give me a list of, a regular report of any indexes that weren't used in the last, what have you, like week, month, that kind of thing. So that's actually my number one. Doesn't sound crazy, like crazy awesome. But again, it's going to solve problems and a common question that we get for a lot of people. So um, happy to see that in there. I'm sure we'll make a lot of use of that on things like IRC and Twitter and Slack and all those sort of help channels that are out there. So um, that's it for this week. Like I said, I'm off to New York for pgconf, doing my Think Like a Postgres talk. And then later in the month, I'm heading to All Things Open. We'll try to stop by DjangoCon and also going to do Phosphor-G up in Baltimore, which so hope to see a bunch of folks at one of those events. And then, I think, what else? There's something else going on in the fall. Oh, PASS. I'm going to PASS Summit to, again, reprise the Think Like a Postgres. So that'll be interesting as well. If you have questions you want me to answer, I feel like I'm not hard to find, but, drop me a note. It could be Slack or Twitter or what have you. Or just send, office hours at pgtreats.info. I'll probably receive that. I might need to find like a dedicated spot to collect questions. But until that time, or drop a comment in the old YouTube thing. I should also ask, feel free to like, subscribe, and share and all that good stuff. If you know people who would like to get some help with Postgres, happy to help. That's it for now. I'm going to go back to debugging my checkpoint video problems, and I will hopefully see you in the next few weeks. Thanks so much.